Somewhere over western Iraq, on the night of March 12, 2026, a U.S. Air Force tanker callsign ZEUS 95 went dark. No hostile missile brought it down. No enemy fighter. In the middle of Operation Epic Fury, the most intense American air campaign in over 2 decades, the KC-135 Stratotanker did what everyone feared it might do sooner or later. It failed, and 6 Americans went home in flag-draped caskets. But this crash isn't just a tragedy, it's a warning. Because the KC-135, an aircraft designed in the 1950s, built before the moon landing, older than most of the pilots who fly it, is still the backbone of every American air operation on Earth. Without it, none of the fighters, bombers, or drones you've seen in this war could have reached their targets at all. Today we're going inside the story the headlines missed. We're going to explain what the KC-135 really does, why losing one over Iraq matters more than most people realize, and what this crash reveals about a crisis that's been building for decades. The KC-135 Stratotanker was born the same year the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. America needed a jet-powered tanker that could keep pace with the B-52 bomber, and Boeing delivered one based on the same fuselage that would become the commercial 707. It first flew in August 1956. It entered service in 1957. And here's the thing, it never left. In Vietnam, KC-135 crews flew nearly 195,000 sorties. Defense historians literally call Vietnam the world's first tanker war, because without aerial refueling, the bombing campaign simply wouldn't have been possible. In Desert Storm, KC-135s flew nearly 5,000 sorties and completed 98% of all missions, a reliability rate that most airlines would be jealous of. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and now Iran. The way it works is simple in concept and brutally demanding in practice. A boom operator, lying face down in a small pod at the tail of the aircraft, manually guides a rigid telescoping pipe, called a flying boom, into a fuel receptacle on the receiving aircraft. The 2 planes must hold position within a few feet of each other, often in turbulence, often at night, often in combat zones. The KC-135 can offload more than 200,000 pounds of fuel. That's roughly 30,000 gallons per sortie. Without that fuel, an F-35 flying from a base in the Gulf can't hit a target deep inside Iran and return safely. A B-1 Lancer launching from the UK can't maintain station over the target area. A formation of F-15Es can't loiter and wait for their window. Every strike package in Operation Epic Fury depended, and I mean depended, on the KC-135. It isn't support, it is the mission. As of 2026, the U.S. Air Force operates roughly 370 KC-135s. They represent about 75% of the world's entire military tanker fleet, and every single one of them is over 60 years old. The youngest KC-135 in service today would qualify for early retirement in most civilian jobs. Operation Epic Fury began on February 28, 2026. The U.S. launched what officials called the most kinetic air campaign since Desert Storm, targeting Iran's ballistic missile infrastructure, drone factories, naval forces, and command networks. In just 2 weeks, over 10 MQ-9 Reaper drones were shot down. 3 F-15E Strike Eagles were lost in a shocking friendly fire incident when Kuwaiti FA-18S engaged them in confusion over Kuwait, and the tanker fleet was pushed to its absolute limit. According to Breaking Defense analysis from March 3, 2026, with over 100 combined KC-135 and KC-46 tankers deployed across the theater, operating from bases in Israel, the Gulf states, and Diego Garcia, the tanker fleet was identified as the most likely limiting factor in sustaining the campaign. Fighters and bombers weren't the bottleneck. Fuel delivery was. And into that already stretched situation, at approximately 9 p.m. local time on March 12th, 2 KC-135 Stratotankers were operating over western Iraq, and then one of them vanished from the sky. U.S. Central Command confirmed it almost immediately. Quote,
"The incident occurred in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury. 2 aircraft were involved. One went down in western Iraq. The second landed safely. This was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire."
The second aircraft, also a KC-135, declared an in-flight emergency and diverted to Israel. Photos circulating on social media, which Air and Space Forces magazine reported but could not independently verify, showed that a significant portion of that aircraft's vertical stabilizer, the large tail fin that keeps the plane flying straight, had been torn away. That this aircraft landed at all is remarkable. The incident is believed to be a mid-air collision, a catastrophic but tragically possible outcome when two large aircraft fly in close formation in the dark, in a combat zone, with degraded communications. The investigation is ongoing, but what we know is this: the KC-135 that went down carried 6 crew members, and it does not have ejection seats. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane told reporters the military was treating it as an active rescue and recovery operation. But within hours, CENTCOM confirmed the worst. All 6 airmen aboard ZEUS 95 were dead. The 6 airmen who died were Major John A. Klinner, 33, of Auburn, Alabama; Captain Ariana G. Savino, 31, of Covington, Washington; Tech Sergeant Ashley B. Pruitt, 34, of Bardstown, Kentucky; Captain Seth R. Koval, 38, of Mooresville, Indiana; Captain Curtis J. Angst, 30, of Wilmington, Ohio; and Tech Sergeant Tyler H. Simmons, 28, of Columbus, Ohio. Tech Sergeant Simmons was a boom operator, the airman responsible for guiding fuel into receiver aircraft. He joined the Air Force in 2017, deployed to Afghanistan, to the Middle East, and then to Epic Fury. His mother Cheryl told CBS News that when military officials knocked on her door, her husband answered, said, "Oh no," and she knew immediately. She described her son saying, and these words matter,
"Mom, I'm doing this. I understand the risk, and I know this is what it's going to take. I know I could lose my life, but this is what I want to do. I was born for this."
Captain Seth Colville had dreamed of being a pilot since childhood. He graduated from Purdue University, earned his wings, became an instructor pilot. His wife Heather said,
"He was truly the most amazing husband, father, son, brother, friend, and airman."
On March 18th, President Trump, Defense Secretary Hegseth, and General Kane attended the dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base. Hegseth said,
Yesterday we stood in solemn silence as heroes came home in flag-draped caskets. We honored them. We grieved with their families.
General Kane said something the aviation community already knew, but that many Americans had never heard before.
Our nation's tanker crews really are unsung heroes, incredible warriors who put their lives on the line so we can continue to take the fight to an enemy.
2 of the 6 were posthumously promoted: Captain Ariana Savino to the rank of Major, Tyler Simmons to Master Sergeant. It is the Air Force's way of saying, "We see what you gave." This crash didn't happen because the Air Force is careless. It happened in a context that has been decades in the making. The KC-135 was designed for a Cold War that ended 35 years ago. It carries no electronic warfare protection, no self-defense systems. The boom operator has no ejection seat, no parachute system. And the communications suite, the very technology that 2 aircraft need to coordinate safely in a congested airspace, is outdated. Defense One reported that the KC-135 crash immediately triggered calls from senior military leaders for urgent communications upgrades. One official told the publication, and the headline says it all, "It keeps me up at night." Leaders said the aircraft needs Link 16 data link integration, better identification friend or foe systems, and modernized situational awareness tools that tell each crew exactly where every other aircraft in the sky is in real time. The KC-46A Pegasus, the KC-135's replacement, is everything the old tanker isn't. It's a data hub. It can send and receive real-time battlefield information to other aircraft. It has infrared countermeasures. It can operate in blacked-out conditions with advanced thermal sensing. While the KC-135 was strictly a flying gas station, every KC-46A rolls off the line as a networked combat asset. But here's the problem. Congress mandates the Air Force maintain a minimum of 466 tanker aircraft. The total fleet in 2026 sits around 490, but roughly 370 of those are KC-135s. The KC-46 program, launched in 2011 with an order for 179 aircraft, has been plagued by delays and technical issues. As of early 2026, only about 120 have been delivered, and the FY 2026 National Defense Authorization Act actually blocked the Air Force from retiring KC-135s early because legislators were afraid of falling below the fleet minimum. The math is brutal. At current replacement rates, KC-135s won't be fully retired until 2040 at the earliest, and Air Mobility Command has floated the idea of flying them past 2050. Some airframes would be nearly 100 years old. These are not hypothetical problems. They are aircraft flying combat missions today over Iraq without ejection seats, with communications that can't always tell a friendly from a threat. The last time a KC-135 went down before March 12th was May 2013, a crash in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan during a mission supporting Afghanistan operations. 3 airmen died. 13 years of safety followed. But the underlying structural problem, an aging fleet flying in increasingly complex and dangerous environments, never went away. The KC-135 Stratotanker has been flying for nearly 70 years. It has fueled every American air campaign since the Cold War. It transformed modern air power. And in March 2026, it cost 6 Americans their lives, not because of enemy action, but because the United States has been flying an aircraft well past its designed lifespan in one of the most contested airspaces on Earth. The question now isn't whether the KC-135 needs to be replaced. Everyone agrees it does. The question is whether the timeline is fast enough, and whether the aircraft flying today have the tools to keep their crews alive until the transition is complete. The tanker debate is about to get a lot louder in Washington, and the crews flying these missions deserve better than a policy argument catching up to a tragedy. If this video helped you understand what's really at stake in the skies over the Middle East, subscribe to Aviation Tech. We cover military aviation technology from every angle, no agenda, just analysis. Drop a comment with the word refuel if you think the Air Force should be moving faster on the KC-46 transition, and we'll see you in the next one.